My beloved child, stop for just a moment before you scroll away, because this was not placed in front of you by accident. Something has been trying to reach your heart for longer than you realize, and somehow, despite all the noise around you, despite all the distractions, despite every reason to keep moving, you are still here. That alone means something. There are moments in life that look ordinary on the surface but quietly carry the power to change everything. This is one of those moments, and before it is over, you may begin to understand why someone has been speaking to you without saying a single word. You thought it was just another online status, just another short sentence, just another picture, just another time stamp, but deep inside, something made you stop. Something made you wonder if there was more hidden between those few words than anyone else could see. You tried convincing yourself you were imagining it. You told yourself it could not possibly be about you. Yet every time you looked away, your thoughts found their way back. Why would your heart refuse to let it go unless it already knew there was something waiting beneath the surface? That question has been following you longer than you know. The strange part is that this story didn't begin today. It began on a day you almost forgot. A day when someone looked at their screen for far longer than necessary before typing just a few simple words. Their fingers hesitated. They erased what they wanted to say. They rewrote it again. They stared at the blinking cursor as if it carried the weight of an entire lifetime. Then, instead of sending the message directly to you, they placed it where everyone could see it, hoping only one person would truly understand. That person was always meant to be you, yet you kept scrolling. You noticed the status but dismissed it. You saw the unusual timing but ignored it. You felt something inside whisper, "Look again," but logic spoke louder than your heart. And every time you chose logic over intuition, the silence between both of you grew just a little deeper. Still, the message remained. Waiting with remarkable patience, almost as though it knew that one day you would finally stop long enough to see what had been there all along. Have you ever wondered why certain words refuse to leave your mind? Why one sentence echoes louder than an entire conversation? Why someone's silence sometimes says more than hours of talking? These are not accidents. Some messages are hidden inside ordinary moments because extraordinary truths rarely arrive the way people expect. They come quietly. They wait gently. They reveal themselves only to those whose hearts are finally ready to receive them. Perhaps your heart has been preparing for this longer than you realize. The person behind that status has been carrying something they have never fully spoken aloud. Not because they lacked the courage forever, but because every previous attempt ended before it truly began. They feared misunderstanding. They feared rejection. More than anything, they feared losing the small connection that still remained between you. So they chose the safest place they could think of, a message hidden in plain sight, a confession disguised as a passing thought, a cry for attention wrapped inside ordinary words, and somehow, you still missed it, or maybe you were never supposed to understand it immediately. Sometimes destiny delays understanding because immediate answers would rob you of the transformation needed to receive them. Sometimes the waiting changes both hearts until they are finally capable of hearing what once sounded like ordinary words. Maybe the silence was never punishment. Maybe it was preparation. Meanwhile, life kept moving. People continued posting. Days became weeks. Notifications came and went. But every now and then, that same person quietly opened your profile. Not to interrupt your life. Not to demand your attention. Just to check if anything had changed. Just to see whether the distance between you had become smaller, or even greater. You never knew, you couldn't have known, because some of the deepest emotions are invisible to everyone except the one carrying them. Smiles hide longing. Busy schedules hide loneliness. Casual conversations hide sleepless nights. What looks ordinary from the outside can hold an entire universe of unanswered prayers within. There were nights when they almost gave up trying, nights when they convinced themselves you would never understand, nights when they whispered to themselves, if they wanted to know, they would have asked, yet the next morning, hope quietly returned. Hope has a strange way of surviving where logic says it shouldn't. It refuses to disappear completely. It hides beneath disappointment, waiting for one tiny reason to believe again. And every time hope returned, another online status appeared, another clue, another quiet attempt to reach you without forcing its way into your life. Did you notice the pattern, or were you only looking at the words while missing everything hidden between them? Because the truth has never lived only inside the letters, it has always lived inside the pauses, inside the timing, inside the moments when they posted something unusual immediately after thinking about you. Coincidence, perhaps. But some coincidences happen so often that they begin looking suspiciously like destiny. There is something remarkable about hearts that refuse to stop caring. They grow quieter instead of louder. They become more patient instead of more demanding. They stop chasing and begin waiting, not because they stopped feeling, but because real love understands that forcing someone to listen only pushes them farther away. So they waited, hoping one day your own heart would become curious enough to ask the question you are asking now. What were they trying to tell me? That question changes everything, because once your heart begins asking, it also begins listening. And hearts hear things ears never can. Suddenly you remember little details that once seemed meaningless. That unusual quote, that unexpected song lyric, that late-night update posted at exactly 3:35, the message that appeared only minutes after you had been thinking about them. The words that felt strangely personal despite being written for everyone. Why did those moments stay with you? Why did they refuse to disappear? Maybe because they were never meant for everyone. Maybe they were always meant to find only one person, you. Still, there is another layer beneath all of this, one almost nobody notices. The online status was never just about love, it was also about healing. About forgiveness, about two people carrying misunderstandings that became heavier simply because neither one knew how to speak first. Pride built walls where vulnerability could have built bridges. Silence became normal until both sides forgot who had become silent first. Yet underneath every unanswered message lived one question neither dared to ask. What if it's not too late? questions like that never truly disappear, they wait, just like seeds beneath frozen ground, invisible, silent, patient, until the right season finally arrives. Perhaps this very moment is that season, perhaps this very pause is the beginning of something neither of you expected anymore, because sometimes life brings people back to the exact place where they once stopped believing. Not to reopen old wounds, but to reveal truths that could only be understood after enough time had passed. Time changes perspective. Pain softens certainty. Distance teaches value. Suddenly what once looked impossible begins looking strangely reachable again, and still, there remains one final secret hidden beneath everything you've heard so far. The message wasn't only written for you to understand, it was also written to see whether you still cared enough to notice. Every ignored status became another unanswered question. Every passing day became another quiet test, not of your intelligence, not of your memory, but of your heart, because hearts that are still connected eventually recognize each other, even through silence. The person behind those words has reached the point where they can no longer hide what has been growing inside them. The next message they leave will not sound like the others. It will not be as subtle. It will not leave as much room for guessing. Something has shifted. Something inside them has decided that waiting forever is no longer an option, and what they are about to reveal changes everything.